he had chosen. Which will you choose? Now we have some more problems here. You know what the biggest problem here was? What was the biggest problem here?
Food?
They didn't ask the Lord's counsel.
Oh.
They didn't ask the Lord's counsel. They did not ask the Lord's counsel. If he had, the Lord would have given them an answer. Maybe they would have been hewers of wood and drawers of waters anyway. But at least the Lord would have been involved with it. Chapter number 10 now. Now it came about when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, heard that Joshua had captured Ai and utterly destroyed it, just as he had done to Jericho and its king. So he had done to Ai and its king, and the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were within their land. They feared greatly, because Gibeon was a large city, and not one of the royal cities, because it was greater than Ai, and all of its men were mighty. They were soldiers. Therefore Adonizedek of Jerusalem sent word to Hahaim, king of Hebron, and Padram, king of Jarmuth, and to Japhia, the king of Lachish, and Deber, the king of Eglon, saying, Come up and meet me, and help me, and let us attack Gibeon, for it has made peace with Joshua and with the sons of Israel. So the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, king of Eglon, gathered together and went up with all their armies and camped by Gibeon and fought against it. Then the men of Gibeon sent word to Joshua to the camp of Gilgal, saying, Do not abandon your servants. Come and help us quickly and save us and help us, with all the kings of the Amorites that live in the hill country have assembled against us. So Joshua went up to Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the valiant warriors. And the Lord said to Joshua, now the Lord is involved again. Now we have a dream, a vision, or hypnosis. We don't know what it was. But the Lord said to him in a dream, in hypnosis, in hypnotic trance, Do not fear them, for I have given them in your hand, and not one of them shall stand before you. So Joshua came upon them suddenly by marching all night from Gilgal. And the Lord confounded them before Israel. And he slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and pursued them by the way of the ascent of Beth Horon, and struck them as far as Azekon and Makkedah. And it came about as they fled before Israel, while they were in the descent of Beth Horon, that the Lord threw large stones from heaven on them as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than those whom the sons of Israel had killed with the sword. So the Lord is fighting for them, isn't he? And the Lord got involved with this battle. And Joshua spoke to the Lord in that day when the Lord delivered the Amorites before the sons of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, O sun shall stand still in Gibeon. Now God is going to make the sun stand still. Have you ever seen the sun stand still, girls? Boys out there anywhere? It keeps on going round and around and around, but right now something happened miraculously. O sun, stand still at Gibeon. O moon, in the valley of Ajalon. And so the sun stood still and the moon stopped, until the nation avenged themselves on their enemies. And is it not written in the book of Jasher that the sun stopped in the middle of the sky? Now here we have the book of Jasher quoted. The book of Jasher is quoted. Now the book of Jasher, as we have it today, is right here. Hasefer Yashur. There's a lot of extra information in this. It doesn't really claim to be inspired at all, but it is Hasefer Yashur. It means that this is a history book. And the history book is where we find out the names of the 2 magicians that stood before Pharaoh. And it tells us about this also. It's referred to in Joshua 10:13, 2 Samuel 1 and 18, and 2 Timothy 3 and 8. Jannes and Jambres were those false prophets that stood before Pharaoh and before Aaron and Moses. And there was no day like that before or after, when the Lord listened to the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Then Joshua and all of Israel with him returned to the camp at Gilgal. Now why in the world did God make the sun stand still? So that they could pursue them, so it wouldn't go down, it wouldn't be dark, it's going to be daylight, and they could overcome them in the daylight. Now these 5 kings, you know, they didn't have night vision back then, had fled and hidden themselves in the cave of Makkedah. And it was told Joshua, saying, the 5 kings have found hidden in the cave of Makkedah. And Joshua said, roll large stones against the mouth of the cave, and assign men by it to guard them. But do not stay there yourselves. Pursue your enemies and attack them from the rear. Do not allow them to enter into their cities, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your hand, and the sun is standing still. And it came about when Joshua and the sons of Israel had finished slaying them with a very large slaughter until they were destroyed, and the survivors who remained them had entered into the fortified cities, that all the people that returned to the camp of Joshua at Makkedah in peace, not one uttered a word against any of the sons of Israel. Then Joshua said, open the mouth of the cave, and bring out these 5 kings out to me out from the cave. And as they did this, and brought these 5 kings out to him from the cave, the king of Israel, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. And he came about, when they brought these kings out to Joshua, that Joshua called all the men of Israel and said to the chiefs of the men of war who had gone with him, come near, put your feet on the necks of the kings. So they laid the kings down, and they put their feet on the necks of the kings. So they came near, and they put their feet on their necks. Then Joshua said, do not fear or be dismayed. Be strong and courageous. For thus saith the Lord, do with all your enemies with whom you fight. And so afterward Joshua struck them and put them to death. And they hanged them on 5 trees, and they hung on the trees until evening. And it came about at sunset, Joshua commanded, and they took them down from the trees and threw them into the cave where they had hidden themselves, and put large stones of the mouth of it, of the cave, to this very day. To the very day is the writing of this book. Now Joshua captured Makkedah on that day, and struck it with his king at the edge of the sword, who utterly destroyed it, and every person who was in it he left no survivor. Thus did the king of Makkedah, and just as he did done to the king of Jericho. And Joshua with all of Israel with him passed on from Makkedah to Libnah to fight against Libnah. And the Lord gave it also with its king into the hands of Israel, and he struck it, and every person who was in it, with the edge of the sword, and he left no survivor in it. Thus he did to its king, just as he had done to the king of Jericho. Joshua and all the sons of Israel with him passed on before Libnah and Lachish, and they camped by it and fought against us. Then the Lord gave Lachish into the hands of Israel. The Lord did it. And he captured it on the second day and struck it, and every person who was with it with the edge of the sword, according to all that they had done in Libnah. Then Horam, the king of Gezer, came up to help Lachish, and Joshua defeated him and his people until they had left him no survivor. Now, this is what we call the Canaanite Wars here. But I want to tell you something long before this. Long before this. Now, there at Shechem, or in Samaria, when Israel or Jacob came there with his sons, one of the daughter Dinah went out and walked among the people in Shechem. And Shechem, the king's son, desired her and took her into his home. and he would not let her go back. But I'm not sure she wanted to tell you the truth. But they had a meeting with Jacob and the sons, and they begged them to let them marry them. Let him marry her. And they made a covenant with them. And in this covenant, they all became sons of Israel. They all were circumcised, and they were all sore from being circumcised. And then Levi and Simeon went in there and killed every one of them, and took them all captive, captured the women. What oxen and stuff they laid there, they cut their hamstrings, they hamstrung them, so they couldn't be used for work or anything. They had destroyed them, basically, for any useful purposes. And Jacob had a wall-like fit. He said, "You have made me stink in the nostril of all the people here." He said, "You are sons of Hamas, sons of Hamas, violence, just like Hamas is today, sons of violence." And he cursed them for that. Now, there was 100, he said, these people are going to attack us. Now, God protected them, but 100,000 men died in the wars, the Canaanite wars then. Now we have another Canaanite war. Then Joshua with him went up to Eglon and to Hebron, and they fought against it. Now remember Hebron's a very important place, because that's where Abraham is buried. Abraham is buried up there in Hebron, in the cave of Machpelah. And they fought against it, and they captured it and struck it, and its king and all its cities and all the persons who were in the edge of the sword, and they left no survivor, according to all that had been done to Eglon. And he utterly destroyed it, every person who was in it. Then Joshua and all the sons with him returned to Debir, and they fought against it. And he captured it and its king and all its cities, and they struck them with the edge of their sword and utterly destroyed every person who was in it. And he left no survivor, just as he had done from Hebron. So he did to Debir and its king, and he also done to Libnah and its king. And Joshua struck all the land, the hill country, and the Negev, and the lowland, and the slopes, and all of their kings, and he did not left no survivor, but he utterly destroyed all who breathed, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Now this is Gaza here today. Part of this is Gaza. And Joshua struck them from Kadesh Barnea, even as far as Gaza, and all the country of Goshen, even as far as Gibeon. And Joshua captured all these kings and their lands, because the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. So Joshua and all Israel with him returned to the camp of Gilgal, all by the guidance of God, all by visions, hypnosis, and dreams that God had given to Joshua. Jehovah saves. These kings that were there, of course, some were saved. Some of the people joined in with God's people. It doesn't say everything in there that took place, but we know the Gibeonites, they had part of it. And they would become hewers of wood and drawers of water. And we have God's people, Israel. They're going to live in the land. They're going to take the land that God had given to them all the way back to the 9th chapter of the book of Genesis. Let's go back and look at that one more time. Genesis, the 9th chapter. If I can get this old Bible there. I like old things. I'm old, but they're falling apart sometimes. Genesis, Barashith, is what it is in Hebrew, the 9th chapter, verse number 25. And he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants, and he shall be to his brothers." This is the land, man that's going to go and land and has found the land of Canaan. "And he shall be to his brothers, he shall be blessed the Lord God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. And may the Lord God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." This is a promise that Israel will go into the land, and they will gain this land. They went in and they founded this land, these Canaanites did. But they became so evil and so diseased that God would send, when their, what we might call sin, had raised up to the nostrils of God, He sent them back in there. Now they went into this land in the days of Abraham also. And Abraham was there, and he went down to Egypt, and he came back in the land of Abimelech, and he went back into the land of Canaan. And then Jacob went up to Haran, then he came back into the land of Canaan. That's where his boys got in a big fight with Shechem and killed all of them. And then they had the Canaanite wars. But then again, when they were down in Egypt, they went down there for 400 years. And God said, the stench of the land of Canaan has come unto my nostrils. Their sin has ripened. Go take the land. That's what it was. God, in His Word, you know, we look at this, we look at the problems we have today with Hamas over there in the land of Canaan again. Hamas is there causing trouble. The PLOs went out of they were in Jordan. The king of Jordan kind of exited, told them to leave and ran them off. They went down in Lebanon, and when they went down in Lebanon, when they went down there, they caused a big revolution and a civil war down there, and they killed their Christian king. Everybody was getting along there just fine. Had a Marionite Christian king. And I was there when some of that was taking place over there in the land of Israel and the land of Canaan. We had the land in Lebanon by emergency. And we came in there, Brother Madden was sitting there, and he said, Brother Phillips, you see those rifles walking us, following us? They were the anti-aircraft rifles following us as we was landing. We went in there and he came out there with a machine gun on a Jeep and told us to leave right away. They were getting ready to kill their president, and we were in the way. And we had to land, so they got out there on the Jeep with a ladder, and they got up there and they poured oil in the engine. I had told them the oil was coming out of that engine when we were going across the Mediterranean Sea, all the way from Rome, Italy. And first of all, I got a hold of the cabin boy, whatever you want to call him, and I said, you see that engine? It's leaking oil. How much oil's in that engine? It's streaming out of that engine. Oh, I said, you better tell the captain. I'll go tell the captain. Well, he went on for about an hour, and he come back by again. You tell the captain, oh no, I forgot. I said, you better tell him. I said, that oil's still running out of that engine. It's going to catch on fire pretty soon or something. So he went there, and he went to the cabin. The cabin come out there. The captain did, and he looked over there, and he said, oh yeah. He goes in there, and he starts calling on the radio, and he talks to Beirut, Lebanon, and we're going to land in Beirut, Lebanon. Well, they don't want us to land there. They're hollering at each other and going on. Well, we land there anyway. They come out there and wouldn't let anybody off or anything. But they took some captures. They captured somebody off that plane. And so they took them off and took them into custody. And then we went and flew all the way over the ridge of mountains into Damascus, Syria. And that was another story. But anyway, I saw them, that revolution there in Lebanon. I was there. And it was scary. They followed us all the way out there again with anti-aircraft rifles. I guess they were practicing on getting ready to shoot down the president's airplane. There's been war in that country for thousands of years. All the way back to Shechem. All the way back to the Canaanites as Israel went into the land of Canaan, and God gave it to them. That's a title deed to that land. He gave it to them in Genesis the 9th chapter, before they even were, because He knew what they were going to be like. And today, they're the same as they were yesterday and the day before and 2,000, 3,000 years ago. Some people don't change. Our Father, we send this message out for you, for your honor and glory. Please use it wherever it goes. Please forgive me where I fail you. In Jesus' name I pray.